All right, so good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening for a workshop on mindfulness for stress reduction with George Place, who's always been so wonderful to share his insight with us on lots of health and wellness topics. I'm very eager to hear about this topic. And I'm going to put a link into the chat so that at the end of this class, you can complete a survey for us, which is super helpful. And so look for that. If you have a question and you don't want to interrupt, you can type it into the chat. I'll make sure at the end that we get back to any questions that you might have. And again, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to just go ahead and turn it over to George. Thank you, George.
Thank you, Erica. Well, hi, everybody, and thanks for joining. So I'm George Place, and I'm the Extension Director at the Catawba County Cooperative Extension Service. And tonight, as you can see, we're going to talk about mindfulness, and who couldn't use a little bit of stress reduction these days, right? Even pre-pandemic, stress is something that we definitely want to be able to manage in our lives. And we'll talk about that a little bit tonight. Let's get right into it. I always like to give the introduction. This is the website for our county office. And if you're not familiar with the Cooperative Extension Service, come and check out our website. You'll get an idea of some of the things we do. One of the best resources for folks I like to point out that we have provided is we do a local food guide. And so every year or every 2 years, we put this out. This is your one-stop shop resource in how to buy food locally from Catawba County farmers. And of course, in there, there's the schedule for all the farmers markets, including the winter's farmers market that's happening now, all the different farms that you can visit and have a connection with your growers and really form a relationship with your food. So our local food agent, April Vigart, and our consumer sciences agent, Tina McGilvery, they always do local food cooking classes also. So check it out. There's really some good stuff. And, you know, I think everybody that's on this wants to be healthier. I know myself included. And of course, how we eat and our connection to food is a part of that. So, you know, don't forget about those things. So let's get into mindfulness. And who doesn't feel like this sometimes, right? I know I do. Our minds have so much going on that sometimes we can get a bit scattered, and it can be difficult for us to turn our attention to what is happening here and now. A lot of times we've got worries of future things, maybe some regret of some past things going on, and everything in between. And really, this is the balance, right? You know, we all hear it's almost a little bit trite to say that your life only happens in the now. But really consider that. How much of the windstorms of our mind are in either the future or in the past? And it's normal. Our brains are wired to do that. So don't feel bad. Don't feel like you're failing. Be aware that the more attention that we put to training our brain to be in that present moment, the more we will actually be here living our lives, not in some sort of a mind storm of inner dialogue and really kind of illusions of the future or memories of the past. So we'll talk more about that. But, you know, it's easy to say that, right? Well, gosh, just be present. Why is it so hard to live in the present moment? And in part, like I say, our brains are wired to remember, and our brains are wired to see potential dangers, to see potential threats or potential resources, right? The fact that our brains always want to go off in different directions, it has helped us to survive. So don't hate yourself for that. Don't be frustrated by that. Just acknowledge, you know, this is how we are built, and knowing that you can approach it in a very reasonable way to start practicing to train your brain to be more present. And, you know, the other thing about presence and about stress is conflict management. And this is a very exaggerated photo, right? We don't really oftentimes have this much conflict, but it can be very minor things, little things that people say that maybe rubbed us the wrong way, or we do the same thing. We said something and now someone's bothered and that wasn't our intention. And so how we interact with people and the minor conflicts that arise is also a motivator of being more mindful and learning how to respond, not to react. And of course, when chaos is unfolding, if we have practiced in this way, we can hold on to the moment. We can do what needs to be done to hopefully resolve some of the chaos, resolve some of that conflict, and remain calm. And that's a great benefit of having these practices as well. It's almost like first aid for when things go wrong in an interaction. So we always talk about stress, but really, what is stress? And there's so many different ways to think about it, but I like to see this chain of events that unfolds in our body. And it starts on the left with some sort of stimulus, something that comes into our visual field. Maybe we hear something, smell something. You can imagine, for example, waking up in the middle of night and hearing breaking glass. So the stimulus is that broken glass. Well, you can imagine where that's going to lead you, right? You're going to analyze that very quickly and come to a conclusion about what that is. You're going to have a feeling, a coping method, and you can rest assured that your heart rate and adrenaline and all those stress responders are probably going to jump up because you have discerned that stimuli as a threat. And now it's time to gear up for that physically. And that happens unconsciously in a matter of split seconds. So let me give you an example. This is one of my favorite examples. Imagine stepping out on your back deck and you see this and, oh my God, you immediately think snake, right? It kind of looks like a snake. And what happens when you imagine that as a snake, right? We've all done this in one way or another. Your heart rate jumps, right? A lot of times, if you're really convinced it's a snake, you can almost feel your head kind of heating up. You can feel the blood shunting to the core. You might even get a little woozy. My point is that what you saw then resulted in an interpretation, and that interpretation resulted in a whole physiological response. Your interpretation changed your body, okay? And so then when you realize it's a rope, what happens? You start to calm down, but it takes a little bit to calm down, right? And then, of course, we're back to feeling peaceful. So I want you to take from this that the stimulus is not necessarily what causes my physiology to change, but rather the interpretation. That's very important. So let me give you another example. You're driving along and what happens? Somebody cuts off somebody in traffic. And again, it's like the rope on the back deck. Do you see this as a giant threat? And your heart rate comes up? A lot of people do. And we get this response, right? You're ready to, oh, I'm so angry. And that anger can just start to take over your whole body, right? And, when you think of somebody this frustrated, they probably didn't choose to be that frustrated, or at least they didn't consciously choose it. In fact, I'm sure that they would blame that other driver, right? And so, this is a typical pattern for me, and this might be what we see, for example, in road rage or other reactions. Some other person does this thing, and I interpret that as a threat. Now, it could be so small, right? Maybe they said something about me to somebody else, and that hurt my feelings. Maybe it was more rejection. Maybe they cut me off in traffic, and or maybe I feel like they're making me look bad, and maybe that's a threat to my job or a threat to my reputation. And however that is, it might for a microsecond make me feel fearful, but then I cover it up with a more powerful emotion like anger. I'm going to blame them for that whole feeling, and stress ensues, right? That's one chain of events that can happen. The whole practice of mindfulness can bring us to the fact that when we get riled up and we interpret something as a threat, what's happening physiologically is our whole limbic system becomes activated. And the limbic system in your brain is really that survival portion of your brain. This is what some people refer to as that reptilian brain. And part of that is the fight or flight response. And neurologists think that that main fight or flight response happens in two tiny little portions of your brain called the amygdala. And in fact, amygdala means almond-like, because these little areas, they're about the size of almonds. There's one on each lobe. And you can look at numerous peer-reviewed publications where they're starting to see the relationship of activated amygdala and chronic inflammation. In fact, I was looking at one study where they brain scanned about 100 people and they measured the differing levels of activated amygdala. And then they brought those people back in 5 years later, and there was a very strong relationship of activated amygdala and arteriosclerosis, cardiovascular disease, inflammation. And so when these amygdala get activated, there's a whole cascade of hormones and cytokinins and other immune response boosters that boost your inflammation. And if you think about how we have evolved as a species, it makes sense, because 1 million years ago, if I'm under threat, say by a grizzly bear or another person from a different tribe, someone that's threatening my life, if I interpret that threat and my body immediately starts producing an immune response, I'm preparing for fight and I'm preparing to be wounded. In other words, when you get wounded, you have an inflammation response, and that's how you heal. If your body starts prepping all of that before you even get wounded, your chances of survival might be greatly increased. And so what used to protect us now maybe is not protecting us anymore, but actually is resulting in chronic inflammation. Because obviously we're not under physical threat hardly ever in today's world, really. We don't really face physical threat at all. But how we interpret what's going on, we perceive it as a threat, and our brains act accordingly. And so where does mindfulness and meditation come into all this? How can we alleviate stress? What we have to begin seeing is that we are responsible for the interpretation. There is the stimulus, there's the external, the event, and then there's how we train our brains to interpret that event. And that is a very important distinction, because if we don't take responsibility for that interpretation, then all we are left with is reaction. We're always reacting. And what we want to be able to do is, right at this point of analysis, we want to be able to choose how we respond. So let me give you another reaction. So just like that, is it a rope or is it a snake? Well, like this person cutting me off in traffic, are they really threatening me? Or maybe I can look at it from an entirely different point of view. Maybe in my mind, I think, wow, what's going on for this person that they have to drive so crazy? Is it maybe something terrible is happening in their life? Maybe there's an emergency. Maybe they are under tremendous stress. You know, one thing I've come to appreciate, especially in this time, there are so many people that are suffering loss that we don't even understand. And could it be that the person that's driving is suffering on such a deep level that they're not managing it well? that stress and that loss and that suffering is manifesting in aggression. It's manifesting in a hurry, in anxiety. And is it possible that they have suffered something that we could never imagine? And even more so, is it possible that we could be mindful enough in that moment that rather than getting enraged at them, we actually think, okay, it's okay. Could we in our minds almost reach out and put a hand on their shoulder and have concern for them rather than hate them or be angry at them or wish them harm? Could we actually think about maybe doing something to protect them? Could we think about maybe they need more than anything else right now, someone to just be patient with them, to understand their difficulty, to extend a hand to them? And for me, when I think about wanting to train my brain to respond in this way, I think about my whole life and what do I want my life to be about? I want to be this person that can extend a hand, even in a moment where maybe that person on the ground has done something bad to me. Do I always succeed in this? No, I don't. I have a long way to go. I'm definitely in practice on this, but I love the words of Pema Chodron, where she describes it as trying to be a bodhisattva warrior, where we vow not to just live in this life satisfied to work on ourselves and retreat from the world, but we want to utilize that ability. If we're somebody that works on well-being and we work on training our brain, don't we want to use that to love on other people and help other people? And so a big piece of that is being mindful in that interpretation. And so, what is meditation and mindfulness? And quite frankly, what's the difference? I hear those two terms used. And one way to think about it, and I love this from our meditation teacher, Tara Brach, mindfulness is your awareness of what's going on. And meditation is training attention. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. By the way, I highly recommend checking out Tara Brach's website. She's got a lot of excellent resources, and she's an amazing meditation teacher. So mindfulness and meditation, it's about becoming an observer. Whether we are becoming an observer of our own minds, whether we're becoming observers of what's going on around us and the stimuli that's coming into our bodies, we become that neutral observer. And if you'll recall from my last talk about meditation, I love to use the example of a scary movie. Sometimes life can feel a little bit like a scary movie. All of us have had this experience. You're watching something on a screen and it makes our heart beat harder. We can feel our stress hormones actually increasing, right? It's just a movie. That's a robot. That's not a shark. And if we remember that, if we sit back in our mind's eye and we can see, like, for example, in the movie theater, if you're watching a scary movie and it gets too much for you, just look at the outline of the theater, look at the seats in front of you, and you'll realize, oh yeah, I'm in a movie. And now all of a sudden it's not scary, right? It's just on a screen. You remember that that's an actor. What if we can do that in a moment like this? All of this is going on. Is there a part of us that can see this in the theater of our mind? Can we become an observer to it rather than emotionally in it, reacting? That's what mindfulness and meditation is about. Learning how to see it rather than just react to it. It's very much like learning how to slip a punch. This takes practice. I could tell you about how to slip a punch all day long. You want to tuck your chin, you want to turn your shoulders, you want to sink your legs. We could talk about it forever. But if you don't practice it, it won't be there for you when that punch is coming in, whatever it be, that thing that's about to make you stressed out, right? The practice comes from a daily effort to train your brain to come back to the present moment. So, training the brain. That's what we're really talking about when we have a formal practice of meditation, or if we're throughout the day reminding ourselves to practice mindfulness. Let me give you another thought about what is mindfulness versus meditation. So imagine you're driving down the road, and you can do this right now even. Focus on your screen. As you're looking at this very picture, your focus is a pinpoint. It's not very wide at all where you put the focus of your vision. Think of the focus of your vision, your central focus. It's very much like your attention. You can only put it on one point at a time, okay? Now, awareness is like that peripheral vision. When we're focused on something, for example, you're looking at your screen right now, but don't look, you can also see things out of the corner of your eye, right? That's your awareness. And so attention versus awareness is very much like the focus versus the peripheral vision. And in mindful meditation, we're training both. You're training the attention, but at the same time, you have an awareness of what's going on. And this is what it is like to do mindfulness meditation practice. Dr. Daniel Siegel, I don't know if you've seen some of the things that he does. He is also an amazing resource. You can look online at his Wheel of Awareness, and it really talks a lot about what I'm explaining right now. He talks about the spoke in that wheel. So you have this central hub, which is awareness, but you have that spoke that you're turning to something specific. And so as you sit in meditation, right? So go ahead, wherever you're at right now, maybe you're sitting, maybe you're standing, turn your attention to the sounds in the room. And now all of a sudden you can feel your attention specifically going to your ears and trying to tune in what sounds you may hear. But all the while, there is an awareness of your visual. There's an awareness of your body sensation. There's an awareness of your breath, of all the other sensations, but you've turned your attention to something very specific. And what Dr. Siegel talks about is you can sit down and you can go through this wheel of awareness where you slowly move the spoke through all of your senses, your sense of hearing, what's coming into your ears. And then you slowly turn your attention to the sense of colors and light and sensation hitting your visual centers. And then your sense of touch, feeling the air on your body, but also the interior of your body. That's a whole other sensation, right? And so on and so forth. Turning all that attention. And then, of course, he talks about bending the spoke back on the awareness. And that's a little bit more of a difficult type of subject to articulate, but you're bending that trained attention back on your very peripheral awareness and watching the watching. So that can feel a little esoteric, but if you're somebody that has a meditation practice, you know what I'm talking about. Another way to think about this, anytime you're doing this practice, it's like throwing darts. So when I sit down to meditate, I tell myself, my intention is to bring awareness to the sensations of breath at my nostrils. That is my object of meditation. And so I sit down, it's like I'm about to throw a dart and I say, my intention is to hit the bullseye. And then I throw the dart. I don't think about the muscles that I'm going to contract in my shoulder and in my legs. I can't do that. I cannot consciously control those factors, right? I set the intention and I throw the dart. And I probably won't hit the bullseye the first time, right? That's okay. I get another dart. I set the intention to hit the bullseye and I throw the dart. And I keep throwing the darts. Am I going to hit all bullseyes the first time? Of course not, right? You follow what I'm saying. This takes practice and it takes repeated attempts with the intention, in this case with meditation, the intention to turn your attention to the sensations of breath at your nostrils. And so as you're practicing this, you begin to watch your mind. So as you sit in meditation, okay, I've set the intention, I'm going to watch and feel the sensations of breath. And then before I know it, I've drifted off into that thing that happened to me today, or maybe I've drifted off into that thing I need to do tomorrow. And I'm no longer on the intention of breath. That's no problem, right? In fact, anyone that has sat down to do meditation practice realizes, boy, there's like a monkey of activity that wants to keep going over here and over here. No problem. As soon as it happens and I realize it, it's like picking up another dart. I simply set my attention again to return my attention to the sensations of breath on my nostrils. Now, I want you to imagine if we were throwing darts and after I tried 10 times and I didn't make any bullseyes, I said, I'll never be good at darts. Forget it. Well, you'd think I was crazy, right? I mean, you got to throw a lot of darts before you hit all bullseyes. And even the best dart players are not able to hit a bullseye every time. Meditation is the same. Don't expect to keep hitting the bullseyes. In fact, that's not the point. The very point of meditation is that as you drift, you're returning. As you drift, you return to breath. I come back. It's the returning over and over again where I strengthen my mind. Returning to breath and then forgetting. It is understood that we will forget breath. That's okay. That's the point. The ability to return it to the sensation of breath is how we get stronger. I like to think about this like lifting weights, and I've shown this slide before, but it's so important to remember it. Lifting weights is like I've got the weights down here, okay? And then I say, okay, return my attention to breath. It's like I curled the weights up. Well, eventually I'm going to forget my breath. It just happens. That's what meditation is. And that's like letting the weights down again. And then I curl them back up again. Over and over again, this is how I strengthen that muscle. Likewise, the way that you strengthen your ability to focus and be in the present moment is that you train your brain to come back over and over and over again. So let me show you some training methods in being mindful and in doing meditation. So first, how do you practice mindfulness? How do you practice meditation? Find a quiet place to sit. You want to find some place that feels calm to you. You could sit on a cushion. You could sit on a chair. It's recommended that you find a regular place and a regular time, but you don't necessarily have to do that. In most meditation how-to type books, the very first step is establishing a regular practice. And I truly believe that this is something that we have to do every day if you want to become skilled. Maybe you start with just 2 minutes daily, but having a daily practice is a great way to do it. You can build up to 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Some research says if you do a minimum of 15 minutes, it will change your brain. It will benefit you in measurable ways. We can see from brain scans that your ability to manage stress and the physiological activity of your brain changes. So working up to 12 to 15 minutes is a goal, but don't start there. If you're brand new to meditation, maybe you just start with 5 or 10 minutes. Find a comfortable place, find a nice way to sit down, and try to remain as still as you can. Set a time limit, set a timer. Don't just sit and then get up when you feel like it. It's much better to submit your mind to a set time. And this allows your brain to calm down. If you allow yourself to just get up when you feel like it, it's funny, your brain gets real activated. your brain starts thinking, well, I think it's time. I think it's time. You can imagine the kids in the back seat on a road trip, right? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? If you set a specific time, you don't keep asking that question. You know that the bell will go off, the alarm will go off when the time has been achieved, and you can let go of whether or not it's time to stop. Release that and have a timer. It's highly recommended. And then as you're sitting, if you're doing mindful meditation, it's not just about focusing on breath, but you're noticing your whole body. You can think about that wheel of awareness. You're turning your attention through the different sensations in your body. So maybe you start with the sensations of breath and you observe that. And then if you meditate with your eyes open like I do, you observe the light coming into your eyes. I'm not looking around the room, but I'm becoming aware of the light hitting my eyeballs and the brain interpreting that light as visual colors, brightness, dimness, and all that. I turn my attention to my ears, my sense of smell, my taste, the feeling on my body. I might do a body scan from my head to my toe. What does it feel like in each part of my body? That puts us in the present moment. We're anchoring our attention in our body. And by doing that, you're training your mind to be here, not in the future, not in the past. That is the practice. That is the muscle that we're trying to strengthen. And it takes time, right? This is a practice. So you have to be patient and kind with yourself. Feeling that breath, feeling that sensation. This part, I believe, can be the key about whether you continue or whether you don't, and even more importantly, whether you make progress. Noticing when your mind has wandered. This is important. When your mind has wandered, which it will do, I want you to say to yourself, oh, thank you. Because there is a portion in your brain that has realized you're no longer focused on your meditation object. Your mind has wandered. The portion of my brain that realizes that and brings that to my attention, I thank. It is bringing, there is a sub-mind that brings that to the boardroom of my mind, to my conscious attention. And I want to reward that sub-mind by smiling and thanking it. And then I remind myself of my intention. I'm happiest when my attention is focused on the sensations of breath at my nostrils. In other words, when I realize my mind has wandered, I meet that with positive reinforcement. This is very important. If you do the other and you realize that your mind has wandered, and then you say, oh, dang it, even a very subtle little negative, damn it, feeling in your head is negative reinforcement. So the sub-mind that helped you realize you're no longer focusing on your meditation object, you want to reward it so that it continues to do that. If you punish it with that small negative reinforcement, it won't help you remember the meditation object. It's like I want my dog to come to me, right? But if when it comes to me, if I scold it and I say, why did you run away? It's not going to come to me. But if I want the dog to come to me, and when it does, I give it a treat, it's more likely to keep coming back to me. That's how we're going to train the brain, with positive reinforcement. I really want to emphasize this can be the difference of whether you progress or whether you don't progress in your practices. You have to positively reinforce yourself. You have to smile to yourself, and you cannot allow yourself to reinforce negatively when your mind comes back to that meditation object. Okay? That takes practice. Yes, be kind. Be kind to yourself. Don't judge yourself. Don't obsess about it. Smile. Realize that your brain is wired to wander and be very happy that it has come back to the breath. One of my best teachers I've never met before, Tiknot Han, you may have heard of him. He's a very popular Vietnamese monk, and he is so amazing at bringing mindfulness to the West. And this is very important to say. Yes, he is a Buddhist monk, but his teachings are not Buddhist. He talks to us whether we are Christian, whether we are Jewish, and he talks about how this practice is relevant for whatever religious or spiritual beliefs that you have, right? Just like you wouldn't say that lifting weights is somehow for one religion or another, training my brain can be for any religion as well. So I want you to know that teachings like the miracle of mindfulness, yes, he talks about it from a Buddhist point of view, but as you'll see from his teachings, he really conveys it to people that have other religious beliefs, and how this is simply training your brain to come back to that present moment so that you can serve your values, worship God in the way you want to, love people the way that you want to, and the way that really is congruent with your religious beliefs. So if it makes you uncomfortable to think about reading something from someone that is of a different religious belief, I really want you to know his teachings are quite secular. And you know, one of my favorite teachings about Thich Nhat Hanh is he talks about how washing the dishes is an amazing meditation. And in fact, you can feel great joy and peace in washing dishes, or for that matter, anything that you do, right? Any chore. But his teaching is wash the dishes just to wash the dishes. In other words, don't wash the dishes just to be done with them and move on to the next thing. Don't wash the dishes because you want to hurry up and get to your favorite TV show or that dessert or your cup of tea or whatever's next. Because if we allow our brains to always work that way, that's our life. We will perpetually live our life thinking about the next thing while we're actually in that thing we're doing right now, which is the only thing that exists now. You want to train your brain to really savor what we're in right now. And so think about next time you're washing the dishes, rather than let your brain wander to what's next or thinking about your day and maybe regretting something or realizing you forgot to do something, turn your attention to the sensations of that cup you're washing. Can you feel the temperature? Can you feel what the cup is made out of? Can you rub that cup, not like it's a dirty dish, but as Thich Nhat Hanh says, handle it as if it were baby Jesus himself, with a kind of reverence. Really feel it, the sensation. Where is the sensation in the feet? What does your body feel like as you're doing this? What is your breath like as you're doing this? You become so absolutely absorbed in washing this cup that it becomes monumental. It becomes a very amazing thing because you have turned all your attention and energy to what's happening now. This is meditation. This is what mindful meditation is. You know, another great mindful meditation practice is walking. Instead of walking just to get somewhere, instead of walking and thinking about other things or doing other things, instead of multitasking, can we monotask? Can we walk and actually feel, what does the ground feel like? As I'm pressing against it, what do my feet feel like? How is my weight being distributed? What's going on with my back and my muscles? And not trying to control it, but watching it. In fact, if you really start to observe your body, you think, holy mow, how am I doing this? I'm coordinating hundreds of muscles in my body without even really consciously doing any of it. My body is doing it. I simply set the intention to walk over there. And in mindful meditation, you sit back and observe it and feel it fully. And you become anchored in the present moment, and you're training your brain again to be in the moment and really feel all the amazing things that are going on right now. Mindful eating is a huge practice. It slows us down. Take a bite, smell your food, savor it, feel those sensations. Don't just chew it up and swallow it mindlessly. This is a big one for me. I sometimes am a fast eater. I really need to practice this one more. And when I do, I enjoy my food so much more. And quite frankly, I eat less. Mindless eating is where I eat way too much, right? Just throwing it in my face, chewing, I'm watching something, I'm doing something, I'm eating more, I'm throwing it in my face, and I'm not even really paying attention to what's happening. So bringing mindfulness to your eating can be a huge benefit to you in this way as well. Not only does it bring you to the present moment and train your brain, but it can help you to eat in a way that maybe is a little bit healthier to your body. So to sum it all up, mindfulness and meditation, I like to think about it like walking on a very narrow ridge. And to one side is the past, and to one side is the future. And really trying to train my brain to come back to that present moment. It's like staying on the ridge. And for me, one of my big motivations when I set that intention and I ask myself, why do I want to do a daily meditation practice? I'm busy. There's so many other things I can do. Why do I want to do that? Why would that be important? And I think to myself, well, if I can train my brain to release the past, maybe I can really understand forgiveness, right? Because the only way that I can forgive myself or forgive somebody else, truly forgive them, I have to release the past, right? And likewise, if I can learn how to release future worries and future desires, I'm able to really accept what is right now. I can accept people and I can accept the moment as it is. And I believe that by training my brain to be able to have real forgiveness and real acceptance, those two values are the root of being able to really, truly love people and love yourself truly on a deep, deep level. Can I let go of what happened in the past? Can I let go of what I'm worrying about in the future? Forgive and accept and truly love on the people that I want to be there for, including myself. For me, that's the whole purpose of life. What else is there? Everything else we do, in my opinion, is for that. And so this is my reminder about why I want to have a daily practice. I want to give you a heads up. I do have a meditation retreat that I'm a part of that's coming up in April. And this is a full weekend retreat. And I should say, this is not an extension event. This is something separate from extension. There's a fee involved with this because you stay at the center. This is the Prama Institute and Wellness Center. You can go on their website. They're up just past Asheville, and it is a beautiful retreat. And I'm going to be doing a portion of the retreat. It's going to be, you know that I do Qigong and Tai Chi. So I want you to be aware, if you're ever looking for meditation retreats, this is a great one for beginners. My brother and he really, truly yogi, Tim Yarborough, he is an amazing yoga practitioner. And so there will be several very gentle beginner yoga sessions. And as well, I'll be doing Qigong sessions. And then throughout that, we'll have meditation sessions. And the whole point is practices that help us connect with breath. And so this is going to be a Friday to Sunday retreat. Check it out on the website. You know, if you've never done a retreat, I find it to be very amazing in bolstering your presence power. And so, you know, whether or not this one's for you, think it over. If there's anything I can help you with, of course, you know, I'm eager to do that. And I also have a regular Tai Chi class. You can send me an email and get on that email list. And we do Tai Chi through Zoom every Wednesday from 12 to 12:30. We've also got classes around the county. So if you want to know more about that, shoot me an email, and I'm always very happy to connect you with any of these practices. And with that, I'll leave it open. If you've got any questions or comments, I'd love to hear them.
George, I'm going to stop the recording.